So you're a gamer on a budget. What components should you decide to get? Because obviously anybody that's got a budget of $100, $200, $300, $400 really needs to sit down and determine what are the best components. And there's a couple options, and I'm going to go through each of them today. Starting off, you've got two kind of paths you can go down. You can choose to get all new parts or all used parts. Now, obviously there is a much easier way to get better performance going down all used part or partially used and partially new, which I would personally recommend for anybody out there looking to build a system that's kind of below a $500 budget range. But if you're going for something that's you're really trying to push your buck, the budget, completely budget is the best way. But I'm going to go over my personal opinions on how to build after a nice budget computer from my past experience. So let's go over that. So first off, for processors. Now, there are lots of processors out there. And right now, you really need an i7. And I mean the 4 cores, 8 threads. Because, to be honest, you're not going to be able to go out and play games with just 4 cores. So you're not going to be able to go out there and do that. And so if you want to really get a nice gaming computer, especially with all the games going heavily multi-threaded recently, you really need that i7. And yes, you don't need the 8700K. You can get a couple generations old, maybe second or third gen, and you'll still get the high clock speeds, high boost clock speeds. You'll still be doing fine in your games, and you won't have any issues. Those will cost anywhere from 30 to 50, 60 bucks. That's about the most you should spend for those. Now, RAM. RAM's a difficult situation because a lot of people will give you a lot of different answers. 8 gigabytes is okay. Especially with DDR3, there are some 3 gigabyte modules, and if you get 12 gigabytes, that's about a sweet spot, perfect for gaming, but they don't make that for DDR4. So what I'm saying is if you have 8 gigabytes, that's really kind of squeezing it really thin, and if you have 16 gigabytes, that's a little too much. So 12 gigabytes is perfect. If you want to be on the safe side, go for the 16. If you want to be kind of on the down low side, go for that 8 gigabytes. And obviously if you can find that 12 gigabyte, that's about the magic number, especially if you're going for a DDR3 system, that'd be a great place to go. So motherboard and stuff is not that important. You just need to find something that supports, your processor, and that's pretty much it. You really can't go about that. So maybe 30 bucks as well. Hard drives are pretty easy to do because you'll find some things online that will say lots of different things. I actually found a 240 gigabyte NAND flash SSD that was only around 40 bucks. So if you really want to get a nice SSD, you should start there. Because any system should have an SSD. Nowadays it's kind of mandatory to boot your system up real quick. So I would say now it's kind of necessary rather than, getting, of course, get a terabyte hard drive, which can be anywhere from 40 to 50 bucks. Don't spend more than that. You can get some ones even cheaper, so don't bother. But those are basically kind of the necessities you need. Now, graphics card, I am going to give you my 100% honest opinion on this. Do not buy this part used. Please do not buy this part used. Please do not buy this part used. And if I didn't mention, please don't buy this part used. Here's exactly why. If you buy a used graphics card, right now we have the market completely flooded with miners' old graphics cards. Now, I wouldn't, in a normal situation, if we didn't have miners, I would say it's probably a safe bet. But since I will say 9 out of 10 cards are from miners, because that's how many cards were originally bought. 9 out of 10 cards are from miners. And miners have a particular mindset, not all of them, but a particular mindset that they want to get the most out of their cards, so they run it 24/7. They overclock their card to get better hash rates and better performance. And they start going about and they just throw away everything, so they really don't care about the cards. They put it in hot temperatures, degrades the silicon, degrades the copper, and basically you end up with a really sketchy card. So I'm not here to say don't buy it, but don't buy it at all. You need to buy this part used. And people are, in the past I've had people come to me and they're like, should I buy this part online? It's on Amazon. It's a good, safe website, but it's used. And I tell them no. Why? Because I've seen people buy used graphics cards that have gone within a month or so. Now, obviously, I made a video talking about if you really have to get a used graphics card, here's some tips and tricks I've found. Now, obviously, these cards were very particular circumstances that I know for a fact were not mined on. But for most people, you don't know the person you're buying from. I would hope. Well, if you know somebody, then that's a different situation as well. As I said, watch that video if you really want an in-depth description of like when it's safe and when it's not. But if you have no idea who this person is and you're buying a graphics card, just watch the video before you even consider it, because I explained a lot of the reasons why you don't want to do it. So used graphics cards are no. Just go with that brand new graphics card. You'll get much better performance. You'll get, well, reasonably you have safe, or your mind is at peace knowing that you're not going to have a car that dies, or if it does, it's in warranty, and you don't have to worry about some minor mind on it and ruin your card. So that's going to be the graphics card, RAM, CPU, motherboard, cooler. For cooler, you really don't need anything except something that keeps it frosty. Why I stress this is because something that, especially when you get a little older processors, the silicon is a little bit old, it's been cooked for a while, and it's kind of, well, obviously anything you buy and use will have some issues possibly in the future. You just eliminate much more of those issues if you get a nice cooler. Why? Because, if you don't know how the voltage and silicon, heat, all that stuff reacts, is when something either has high voltage or high heat, it degrades the silicon. When the silicon gets degraded too much, you don't have a working processor. So, if you want to go about and preventing that, or helping stop that tremendously, basically keep your processor pretty cool. That's all it's got to say. And it doesn't have to be anything special. There are lots of cheap coolers out there that look nice, cool well. I freaking just reviewed one that I had in a system back here that's low profile, Bronte's Reven Bronte, sorry. And that's the CPU cooler I got to review. It's actually a really nice low profile one that keeps everything nice and cool as well. So I'm just saying it's not necessarily a requirement, but it does help make sure you don't run into issues in the future. And so next off, let's go over exactly, the final thing is power supply. So power supply, there's a lot of different other components we could talk about, but power supply is kind of important. Some people will argue and say you really need a nice power supply. This is not entirely true. You don't need to spend a whopping amount of money to get a power supply. A used power supply from a trusted brand is pretty much not a problem. You'll be fine. And if you recognize the brand or you do research and they have lots of power supplies and they're still making power supplies, then I would be willing to say you're probably pretty good. Now, what I would not do is don't go with the no names, because if it doesn't have a name on it, y'all want to run away and don't touch it with a 10-foot pole. As your mother said, don't touch strangers. Pretty much, if it does have a label on it, I'd say do some research on that, because sometimes the older ones still have issues. And especially with EVGA, if you find an EVGA power supply, just go for it, because I've had every single system I bought for the last 4 years has an EVGA power supply in it. Why? Because they're cheap, they're good, and they do the job. And that's all you really need from a power supply, and it doesn't cause problems. So I've actually had components short out, and the power supply actually shuts everything off so nothing else gets damaged. So it saved my butt on multiple occasions. That's why I choose EVGA. My personal opinion, brand loyalty, yes, I can be fanboy, whatever, but I'm just saying the reasons why I've chosen that in the past because of that. I also have a Corsair one that I actually used, which I have no problems with as well. So it's just EVGA has my trust because of those past experiences. But that's going to wrap up for today. If you have any questions, 2 things. I have a Discord server in the description. You can ask questions on there. There's a lot of people that know what they're talking about. They can help you with your individual custom computer build that you're working on, maybe your budget system. They can help you a lot with that, help you find parts, things like that. It's a great tool to use. Also check out my channel for other cool tech, other things. I have budget computer builds. I have workstations. I have budget systems. I have, without cases, how to make your own case, Lego computer cases, things like that. They're all on my channel as well. So I'd recommend you check that out. And of course, as always, thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.